2.5 millennia ago, on the banks of the river Tiber, a legend was born, a small settlement that would one day rule the world. According to myth, it began with two abandoned infants, Romulus and Remus, raised by a she-wolf deep in the Italian wilderness. Whether that story is truth or fable, it captures something essential about Rome itself. Born from struggle, shaped by destiny, and destined for greatness. In its earliest days, Rome was little more than a collection of huts and farmers, constantly fighting neighboring tribes. But unlike others, the Romans learned from every battle. They built not just armies but systems, disciplined, strategic, and relentless. Their greatest weapon was not the sword, it was organization. As the centuries passed, Rome transformed from a humble village into a growing city-state. The people established a republic, a form of government that rejected kings and embraced shared power. Citizens elected leaders called consuls, and the Senate advised them. It was a system built on law, duty, and loyalty to the state. But beneath this idealism, ambition was already stirring. The Roman Republic thrived through war. Each victory brought more land, wealth, and slaves. Their legions became a machine of conquest, moving across the Italian peninsula and beyond. One by one, their rivals fell. The Etruscans, the Samnites, and then their greatest challenge, Carthage. The Punic Wars against Carthage were brutal, fought over the control of the Mediterranean. The Second War saw the legendary General Hannibal march his elephants across the Alps to invade Italy, a feat no one thought possible. For years, Rome suffered devastating defeats, yet it never surrendered. The Romans rebuilt their armies again and again until finally they crushed Carthage completely. The once mighty city was burned to the ground, its soil cursed so that nothing would ever grow there again. By the 2nd century BCE, Rome was the dominant power of the Mediterranean. Greece, Spain, and North Africa had fallen under its influence. Its generals were celebrated as heroes, its citizens grew rich. But the more Rome conquered, the more divided it became. The Republic's institutions were designed for a city-state, not an empire. Wealth concentrated in the hands of a few elites, while ordinary citizens sank into poverty. The seeds of corruption had been sown. As Rome's wealth grew, so did its ambition. Powerful generals began to challenge the authority of the Senate. They commanded massive armies, loyal not to the Republic but to them personally. Civil wars erupted, first between Marius and Sulla, then between Pompey and a young, ambitious general named Julius Caesar. Caesar was brilliant, charismatic, and fearless. His conquest of Gaul made him a hero among soldiers and a threat to politicians back home. When the Senate ordered him to disband his army and return to Rome, he made a fateful choice. In 49 BCE, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his legions, an act of open rebellion. The die is cast, he said, knowing there was no turning back. Caesar defeated Pompey, seized power, and declared himself dictator for life. Under his rule, reforms began: debt relief, new laws, and the expansion of citizenship. But absolute power breeds absolute fear. On the Ides of March, 44 BCE, Caesar was assassinated by men he once called allies, stabbed 23 times on the Senate floor. The Republic died that day, though no one yet realized it. Under his rule, reforms began: debt relief, new laws, and the expansion of citizenship. But absolute power breeds absolute fear. On the Ides of March, 44 BCE, Caesar was assassinated by men he once called allies, stabbed 23 times on the Senate floor. The Republic died that day, though no one yet realized it. From the chaos that followed, a new leader emerged: Caesar's adopted son Octavian, later known as Augustus. He promised stability, peace, and prosperity, and after years of civil war, the people were ready to believe him. Under Augustus, the Roman Empire was born. The Senate still existed, but it held no real power. All authority rested with the emperor. Yet for 200 years, this system worked. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, brought order to a world that had known only chaos. Roads stretched for thousands of miles, connecting distant lands. Trade flourished. Cities rose from Britain to Syria, each a reflection of Roman architecture, culture, and law. The empire became a symbol of civilization itself. Its armies were unmatched, its engineering astonishing. Aqueducts carried water to millions. Amphitheaters entertained the masses. Temples and palaces shone with marble and gold. Rome was the center of the world, a city of 1 million souls, the greatest the earth had ever seen. But greatness carries a price. As the emperors grew in power, corruption followed. The glory of Rome began to crack from within. The line between leadership and tyranny blurred. Some emperors were wise and just, like Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius. Others were monsters. Caligula's madness brought fear to the palace. Nero's cruelty set the city itself ablaze. Paranoia ruled more than policy. Meanwhile, the empire's borders kept expanding. The Roman legions now guarded territories stretching from the deserts of Arabia to the forests of Germany. It became impossible to control such vast lands. Defending the empire drained its resources, and enemies learned to strike where Rome was weakest. Inside the empire, the once disciplined soldiers grew lazy and greedy. The government printed more coins to pay them, devaluing its currency. Poverty spread, trade declined, and loyalty faded. Rome was no longer the united power it had been. It was a patchwork of ambition, corruption, and fear. Religions and philosophies began to challenge Rome's authority. Christianity spread across the empire, offering hope to the poor and the enslaved, but it also divided society, creating tension between the old gods and the new faith. By the 4th century, the cracks in the empire's foundation had become impossible to ignore. By now, Rome was no longer the hunter, it was the hunted. At its borders gathered the so-called barbarians, the Goths, Vandals, and Huns, fierce tribes displaced by migration and hunger. The Roman army, weakened by corruption and divided loyalties, could no longer hold them back. In 410 AD, disaster struck. The Visigoths, led by Alaric, marched into Rome itself. The city that had ruled the world for 1,000 years was sacked. Temples burned, gold was stolen, and the illusion of invincibility shattered forever. Though the Eastern Empire, later called Byzantium, survived, the West continued to crumble. Provinces broke away. The economy collapsed. Trade routes vanished. The empire that once stretched across 3 continents was reduced to fragments. Finally, in 476 AD, the last emperor, Romulus Augustus, was overthrown by a barbarian general named Odoacer. The Roman Empire had fallen. For the first time in a millennium, the eternal city stood powerless. Its glory reduced to ruins, its people clinging to memories of greatness. But Rome did not truly die. Its spirit endured, echoing through time. The Roman laws became the foundation of Western justice. Its architecture inspired generations. Its language, Latin, evolved into the tongues of Europe. Even its failures became lessons that shaped the modern world. From the rise of the Catholic Church to the formation of European kingdoms, Rome's shadow lingered. Every empire that followed, the British, the French, the American, borrowed from Rome's vision of power, order, and civilization. Yet they also carried its warning that no empire, no matter how mighty, is eternal. Rome's story is not just history, it is prophecy. It reminds us that strength without balance leads to corruption, and expansion without unity leads to collapse. The same patterns repeat through time in every civilization that forgets humility. Today, the ruins of Rome still stand, silent witnesses to a past that shaped humanity. The Colosseum, broken yet proud. The Forum, where senators once debated the fate of the world. The Pantheon, whose dome still touches the heavens. Rome rose through courage, discipline, and ambition. It fell through greed, pride, and excess. And in that cycle lies the greatest lesson of all, that power is fleeting, but legacy is forever. Empires may crumble, kings may fall, but ideas endure. And Rome's idea, the dream of greatness, will live as long as civilization itself. This was the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. New videos coming every week.